Welcome to the Good News Bay podcast, where we are seeking to make Bay County brighter one conversation at a time. Today we have with us Bay County Tax Collector Chuck Perdue, and I am so excited he has been willing to be our guest. Let me just briefly share a bio about him. He was born in Kentucky, moved to Bay County in 1984, Bay High graduate, went to Gulf Coast, Florida State PC, bachelor's in accounting, a master's in accounting. I think that you got just before you became a tax collector. Is that right?
Master's in taxation.
Taxation. Awesome. Which is very important if you're going to be the tax collector.
It helps.
You've got two sons. I'm going to talk about Charlotte in just a minute. But
Okay.
you got two sons. Caleb, who our kids went to school together. And so I think a lot of Caleb, who's now in graduate school in Tallahassee, engaged to be married to Olivia Taylor, which is an exciting thing for the family. And for many of those friends that know them. You got a son, Zach, that's married to Raquel, who lives in North Carolina, and he is an airborne medic in the United States Army.
Yes, and so is she.
And so is she. Awesome.
She's not airborne, but she's a medic in the Army.
It's awesome. It's exciting to hear. I don't know. I think it's cool. You've got incredible kids.
Thank you.
In your free time, you like these people like to know novel stuff. You like to travel, boat, spend time with your family. You're actively involved at, you know this, I need to be looking at the camera. You're actively involved in Destiny Worship Center, involved in local international mission projects. And then I wanted to mention that prior to doing what you're doing now, you started a CPA firm, which is, I'm going to throw the title out there, Perdue, Skinner, and Nixon. And you have 20 years of experience in tax consulting, including representing Fortune 500 companies in front of the IRS. And that gives you a lot of experience.
I have done tax work for 65% of all Fortune 500 companies, so really? I have had a lot of experience.
From right here in Bay County?
From right here in Bay County. None of them are located here, but from right here in Bay County.
I'm kind of proud. I'm a Bay County resident. I'm like, there's big things happening we know nothing of.
That's right.
Cool.
You never know.
Well, I know. I've made the statement to others, and you don't have to comment necessarily, but I feel like in some ways you've been almost overqualified for the role that you're in, and I mean that. Really do mean that as a compliment. Before we move into the Bay County Tax Collector stuff, I want to throw out random good news, and okay. I want to give you an opportunity to brag for a moment on Charlotte. She is a professor at FSU PC.
Correct.
And is involved with the CSI crime scene investigation program there. I'm not sure everybody knows about it. Some may know about it, but it's a pretty unique thing. And she actually is able to do some work and help because they've got fancy equipment out there, right?
That's right. So Charlotte and I have been married 27 years. She's phenomenal. I would not be the man I am today without her. And she reminds me frequently She reminds me frequently if I keep striving that maybe I'll reach the goal one day. But no, she's incredible. She does head up the crime scene investigation degree program at Florida State University, Panama City. It is the fastest growing program at FSU. She started her first semester a few years ago. I think she had 4 students. This semester she has 700 students. So it's growing very quickly. She's got a state-of-the-art crime lab that she takes her students through. And it's if you like crime TV, you would love to be a part of this program. It's really a passion of hers. And because she has all this great equipment, she will often be called by the medical examiner or by the sheriff's office to go help process crime scenes, especially if there's some thought there might be a homicide involved, and she can then turn that into being an expert witness for the prosecution. So it's a lot of fun. She's far more interesting than I am, and better looking.
I find it exciting that a program like that, with the credentialing and really the opportunities like that, are here local, and so I know you're proud of her, and rightly so.
I am proud of her. I'll have to tell you, we are diehard Florida State people. I don't want to talk about football, but she did get her forensic science degree from the University of Florida College of Pharmacy.
Okay.
And that was hard to write that check every month. So
it's painful. Well, I want to talk about some accomplishments before we get into why you went into office, because I think it's important to just kind of start off with a bang. You won the election back in 2016. And in that process, you had a few things that you wanted to accomplish, and I'm going to list off a few, and then you can give some detail, I guess, about several of these. But very quickly, we began to have a Facebook page, which is very important. New logo, new website. Many of the processes have had to be or have been streamlined. And now, keep in mind, I want our listeners and our viewers to keep in mind that you have with the Bay County Tax Collector's Office and your team, who I know you're proud of, you have had to not only you made some upgrades, but in the process, you dealt with a hurricane and now a pandemic. And so I think it's important, as we talk about the things that are happening there, we think about these two things that are fairly large obstacles, but important in the resiliency of the culture. So tell me what is concealed weapons permits. You can get those now through the tax collector's office.
That's correct.
And that was something that you wanted to do,
yes,
and thought was important. And I was encouraged to hear how many of those we actually have processed.
Just over 30,000
are in Bay County. And just a few years ago, we only had like 12,000. Now we got 30,000. So there are lots of, if you were a bad guy, you need to know there are lots of well-armed citizens, law-abiding citizens, or they never would have been processed in Bay County.
That's right.
So this is good news. Also, tax bills. I think it's important to let our folks know what's coming. Tax bills are coming. That's not the news, but the news is that they can file that online.
Tax bills will mail around the end of October, but the tax roll will be available online on our website for payment prior to maybe the last week of October. And you can pay that right online. There's absolutely no reason to visit the office. You can take your checkbook and enter some details, and there's no convenience fee for doing that. There's a PayPal option. There's credit card options. All kinds of ways to do business with our office now that does not involve a trip to the office.
It's incredible. And that's good, great news for lots of folks for lots of different reasons.
Absolutely.
I could go through all those, but it's everything from being concerned about being exposed and being around somebody to the wait time, all these variety of things. So
that's exposed 1,200 people a day through our office.
1,200 a day.
1,200 people a day through our office. So we are a high volume facility.
You also, in terms of potential for the number of people to go through, you said, we know you've got two different renewal kiosks. I'd never heard of one of those.
That's right.
And they're in Publix.
So we do have a renewal kiosk in Publix on 23rd Street and in one on 77. And you can go in there in under 2 minutes. You can pay for and renew and print your tag out anytime Publix is open. So it's not limited to our business hours.
So if they didn't know that was the way they could do it, you can do it. A lot of this is, all these things are available online.
If you wake up on Sunday morning and you're headed to Emerald Coast Fellowship and you're like, oh gosh, I didn't renew my tag, you can do that at Publix on the way into church.
So you can book appointments online with lots of different things now, and that helps them avoid the lines. I have a note here that you can get texted, I guess, if you're running behind, to let them know that you're
text
going to be a little
updates.
late. Talk to me about the Express Lane. What is that?
Express Lane is where you can go on our website and renew your tag online. And if you do that, by 2 o'clock, you can pick that up in any office or designate someone to pick it up for you same day or next day.
Okay.
And if they don't get picked up in a few days, we just mail them out. But we do somewhere around 400 of those a day.
Wow.
So it's a very popular service.
Your predecessor was Peggy Brannon. Somebody that served faithfully for quite a long time.
48 years.
48 years. Guys, that's a long time.
She was tax collector for 24 of those years.
That faithfulness is commendable. It really, really is.
It's unbelievable. It's unheard of. Who has a career that long anywhere anymore? You just don't see it.
You really don't. And so even though we talk about some of the transitions that have been made, I think it's important to know we've had several key factors that have been a part of that.
Absolutely.
One is just in the last 20 years, there's been huge. I spoke to our teenagers last night, and I told them I feel like on the backside. I'm like, why in the world did I say that? But I said to them, when I was growing up, we didn't have email. And it's true. Like my wife and I corresponded but we wrote letters to each other. So when you think about the amount of transition in technology in our lifetime, it's been huge. Add to that a hurricane, add to that a pandemic, and it has forced some major technological changes. And I don't know if it's appropriate to do it, but all of them that are listening and all of them that are watching, you probably ought to be patting ourselves on the back, because there are folks that are senior adults that have learned how to use smartphones. They've learned how to use all this automated technology that had they not walked through this pain the last several years would not have done that.
That's right.
But you said you've seen that as well in the tax office, in that you have had you've like the process of change has accelerated because you've gone through the pandemic and all these kind of things. Is that correct?
Well, we were going to go through it anyway because we needed to have upgrade all of the systems and processes. But the hurricane certainly pushed more business online. We were doing about 8 or 9% of our transactions online pre-hurricane. It doubled after the hurricane and then went up a little bit more. We're doing about 24% of our business online now post-pandemic.
I don't think most folks really understand the mind of an accountant. I love accountants. I love the fact that they do what they do, and they
or an accountant that's an extrovert. How about that one?
That's also exceptional. Like an accountant that's good with people and actually likes to talk to folks that come through.
Right.
But what I think is neat is we were talking like the pre-interview interview, and I asked you. You said something about how many things were on your to-do list. How many items were on your to-do list when you took office?
So when I took office, one of the things I did on my campaign trail is I went and visited other tax collectors' offices around the state that I feel like was doing things very well. And I took good notes, and I wanted to bring those things to Bay County. After my first week...
You're an accountant, of course you took good notes.
Yes, after my first week in office, we had 1,662 things on that to-do list.
Okay.
So...
And how many do you have on that list that have yet to be done?
Well, that list keeps growing as we knock things off of it. Where there's a little over 200 things on it right now that we need to do to meet future demand.
I'm not an accountant. How many have you accomplished? If it was 1,600 and now it's 200, so we're talking about 1,400.
At least.
That's incredible because the list continues to you add to it, and you're still accomplishing things and marking things off the list every day. I wanted people to hear that. Like you guys. This is good news. Y'all had a lot going on.
Absolutely, and it's you mentioned Miss Brannon, who did a phenomenal job for Bay County for all those years, but toward the end of her tenure, there was a huge amount of population growth. Technology took a huge jump forward, and so when I took office, all the computers still had the old green screens with the F keys for everything. It had 41 typewriters, 4 microfilm machines, no Word, no Excel, no email. So, we skipped Windows and went straight to cloud-based solutions. And so it was a lot of work. We had to do a safety plan. We had to build out a benefits department, just an HR department. I mean, there was a lot of things that you see in large corporations that's never really taken part in a government office before, just simply because there wasn't the right people or culture to pull it off.
So in order to make all this happen, a couple things had to happen. I want to talk culture in just a minute, but before we talk culture, we made a bit of an investment as a county, and I'm just thinking through a timeline as we're talking, it was pre-hurricane. So we made the investment pre-hurricane, got these mechanisms in place. So probably that first year or so, those investments, it cost the county a little bit, but since then, we've actually increased the efficiency to the point that now there are cost savings of what it cost the office to run compared to what it did. Is that correct?
It's pretty significant. So we made a huge investment year one, and we saw an immediate return. Our operating expenses went down 41% from year one to year two. But what is even more important than the dollars to me is that our ability to serve customers in a more timely manner drastically increased. Right before the hurricane, our average wait time was around 4 minutes. And we were really firing on all cylinders, and everything was going great.
I think it's awesome. Leadership is critical in all of this, and I think that anybody that's listening has got a business mind. What I'm fascinated by is because I had been to the tax collector's office before, and I've been a couple of times since the hurricane, since you took office, and even since the pandemic. I'm fascinated by the change in culture. Like, if you haven't been, it is a difference. Now, I know you're trying to drive everybody online, so you're not necessarily asking everybody to come see you, but they will notice when they have tax things that have to be done, there is a difference. On your website or your Facebook page, I'm going to share a quote, and if you don't want to claim it, it's okay, but it's really good. I'd love to claim it. The number one job of a leader should be to grow other leaders. Professional growth and development is critical to efficient and effective operations. I'm so very proud of my team, and I hope they hear this because there's much to be proud of. They're putting in the hard work to grow themselves so that they can start growing others. Great job, team. That reflects a culture that you have tried hard to develop to accomplish all the things that you accomplish as a team, right? I mean, you said that
Absolutely.
culture change mattered.
So all the great technological advances that you mentioned, they would have never happened if we didn't build the right culture in the office. And I can't tell you what a leader is, but I can tell you what it's not. A leader is not a title. I mean, I tell my team all the time, if you strip away everybody's title, who are people following? Where do they go to ask questions? Who do they get help with? Who are they taking pictures with on the weekend? Who's going to whose kids' birthday parties? Those people are not only leaders, regardless of titles, they're influencers. And so they have to be engaged early on with any crazy idea I come up with, and they've got to be able to be a part of the process so that they buy into it. And when they do, change happens very quickly. My quote on Facebook, that is very true. I'm very proud of my team. They're phenomenal, but that's also part of our values of hire, retain, and celebrate talent, is creating an environment so our staff can have opportunities to grow and to promote and to give back and to serve others.
Speaking of team, I think you've done a phenomenal job creating a culture that got challenged not just after the hurricane, but specifically after the pandemic. Mm-hmm. I mean, your office is like everybody else's. You've got to find employees. Everybody's struggling to get enough employees. I know that's been difficult to navigate, but you've obviously successfully continued to be able to operate in a fairly efficient manner.
Yes. So the thing about the hurricane was there's no corporate team building exercise like a Category 5 hurricane, right? I mean, there's not one out there. And so quickly after the hurricane, like the night of, we assembled our senior leadership team under a pole barn over in Walton County, and we said, you know what we got to do? We got to put eyes on every one of our team members, all 70 team members, every 2 days, and meet all their needs. The heck with the office. Yeah. We'll figure that out with time, but we got to go. We got to love our team because that is our culture, that is our values. So we loaded up trucks with chainsaws, water, tarps, generators, food, medication, contact lenses. You can't imagine what we did. We cut our ways into our people's homes, and we checked on them every 2 days. We made a list of what they need. I found a Walmart in another county every single night. I filled my truck full of supplies. We came back the next day, and we do it all over again. And we did that for about 80 straight days until everybody had sewer, water, power, and vehicles and transportation, had all their needs. That, at the same time, our volume in our office quadrupled almost overnight, because if you wanted to file a claim with FEMA, or if you need to file an insurance claim and you've lost your driver's license or your car title, or you needed, a property tax bill because all the mailbox disappeared, right? I mean, I couldn't mail out tax bills. We had a huge volume, and our team showed up. And so what I did was I told my chief deputy the Monday, the 1 week after the hurricane, I said, we need to get everybody back in the main office. And he's like, boss, you're crazy. These people have hurt and they've lost everything they've owned. And I said, I fully believe if they can get back to doing as many normal things now as they were doing before the storm, that will help with healing. And so we didn't open the doors to the public that day. We just had everybody come back, and they cried, we prayed, we hugged, we loved on each other, we told stories to each other. And that was a turning point in the culture that we were building. There were people on staff prior to that was unsure about me, maybe thought I was a little crazy. They had run through this brick wall for me today because of that, the way we served them and loved them during that hurricane.
That's big. That's a leadership lesson by itself.
It is.
It's really neat, and I think it's really, well, it's good news.
So when the pandemic came, it presented some challenges. They rose to the occasion. Wasn't near as difficult as the hurricane for us. And as far as hiring and keeping our staffing, we were designated essential workforce, and because of our roles in keeping commercial drivers legal and on the roads to deliver PPE, groceries, supplies. I mean, remember there was a toilet paper shortage. Yep. Somebody had to drive that. We had to make sure they were legal, right? So it was a challenge, especially when COVID would hit our team. But we continue to work hard and show up and serve the community to get through those things together. And then all of a sudden there's unemployment, and there's just a shortage of employees everywhere. You saw it all over Facebook. People have a hard time hiring people. Yep. Well, nobody knows more what it takes to work in my office than my team. That's why I'm not really involved in the hiring and interview process, because my theory is if I'm asking them to cook the dinner, they ought to be able to pick the groceries. I mean, I can fill seats all day long, but they may not gel or represent our culture or our values, right? So we started a referral program. If you're an employee and you refer someone to come in and shadow for an hour, we'll give you a $10 Visa gift card. If they decide to put in an application, we'll give you another $20 gift card. If we hire them and they're still here after 6 months, we give you another gift card.
You're starting to sound a lot more like an entrepreneur than a politician.
Maybe. I don't like politicians.
I don't. Well, I like everyone. I love everyone, but I do love the entrepreneurial spirit.
Thank you.
And so I love this. I love to see that piece. That's good. Somebody's going to take that idea
fun.
and run with it.
It's fun. And we have these life-size figures in all of our offices, these cardboard cutouts with a QR code that you can scan, and those things are getting hit 300-400 times a week. People going. We actually have more interviews now scheduled than we have positions left open. I have more people on staff now than I've had since the hurricane.
That's impressive.
Yeah, I have an abundance of people.
So let me change gears and ask you this. Clearly, things have gone very, very well. God has blessed your efforts in our community, really. What caused you to want to be the Bay County tax collector?
Doesn't sound like a very good gig, does it? I mean, the only thing I can tell you about tax collectors is the Bible says Jesus loved them. So my oldest son, Zach,
listen, I don't personally know a ton of tax collectors.
Yeah.
The one I know, I like a lot.
Right.
So I have nothing against the tax collector.
So my oldest son, Zach, when he was, turned 15, he said, "Hey, Dad, can you take off work, take me to get my driver's license?" I'm like, sure, happy to do that. Love, it's a great time to celebrate and to be a little scared, right? Because your kid's getting on the road. And so we went, and I had a less than pleasurable experience the half day I was there. And so I went home jokingly and told my wife, when Caleb leaves home, I'm going to run for tax collector. And then a couple of years later, Caleb needed to get his license. Same experience, but this time I kind of sat there and I was like, I'm looking at their systems and I'm kind of seeing how the office is flowing, and I'm thinking, there's some room for improvement here. So 2 years down the road, Caleb's a senior in high school, and we sold our corporate tax consulting firm to a large law firm, and I'm looking for something to do. I know I'm going to open the CPA firm, and just as a side note, Crystal Nixon does all the hard work there. My name's on the letterhead. I do some marketing work, but she does all the actual work. She's phenomenal. But so Charlotte says, "Well, you said you're going to run for tax collector." And I was like, "Yeah, but not really. I've just spent 20 years pursuing the IRS to get tax dollars back. I don't like taxes. I really don't like politics. It just is not exciting to me. And I don't like big government. So it didn't seem like it would be a good fit for me." And so she asked me, she told me, she said, "I've prayed about this. I feel like it's something you need to pray about and consider." So we spent a few weeks, and I was praying about it. And God didn't say yes or no. And if he did say yes, I wasn't able to receive it. And I fought it a little bit. And we kept having this dialogue back and forth, and Charlotte just kept bringing it up. And so we're at church one Sunday at St. Andrew Baptist Church, and Brother Mike, Dr. Michael Clunch, phenomenal man, he was preaching on things that was happening in our country. And this is in 2015. And I don't remember exactly what he said, but paraphrasing, it was something to this effect of, if you don't like the way your country is going, get involved in your local community and work to make a difference there. And then the country will take care of itself. And so Charlotte's elbowing me, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, like really? So we go home, we have a great Sunday afternoon. We're having dinner, and she says, "What do you think about the sermon today?" It's like, "Babe, I really don't want to talk about it." So we get through dinner, we turn on the TV, and no kidding, lead news story was longtime tax collector Peggy O'Brien announces retirement. And I was like, okay, God, we're doing this. I don't understand it. And honestly, what am I? I'm 50 years old now, so I was 45, 46 years old. I told God, I said, "Look, I'm going to be obedient to you. I do not understand this, and none of it makes sense. But I am a process person. I understand procedures and processes. I know I can make a difference. I'm going to go on this journey, God. And I had this plan to knock on all these doors, and I started thinking, well, maybe if I don't win, it's because God really didn't want me to be the tax collector. He wanted me to have an impact on somebody I met along the journey. And so I was open to where God was moving me, and I just kept going one day after the next, and I won the election. It was shocking. I actually won. And but God quickly revealed to me when I got in the office, yes, there's a lot of systems and processes that need to be upgraded and changed. But what he had me there for was to minister to people, to love people, to serve others. And I did not feel equipped for that task. And so I had to be very intentional. And so I set aside about 4 months. I met with every single employee one-on-one. We laughed, we cried, we prayed, and I got to know them. I was vulnerable with them. I was building trust with them, and I let them know that I love them, and they're far more important to me than I am to them, and I recognize that.
That's awesome. Well, it's no wonder that you have had the success with the team that you have. I don't know if we ought to. I know we ought to thank God, but maybe we ought to thank Charlotte too for elbowing you and encouraging you along the way. Let's talk. Let's just talk. I'm going to change gears again. Let's talk a little bit about all the growth in Bay County. You have eyes that some of the rest of us don't get to have.
That's right.
It sounds like when there's a new development that comes, there's a process that comes with that for development. And what do you see with that?
So anytime there's a new development in Bay County, my role in that is that the developer has to bring the plat to me, and I have to certify that the land that's going to be developed, all those taxes are paid in full as of that date. And then I sign off on it, and then it goes and they get the county commissioner's signatures and the clerk of the court. So there's a process that the building department requires.
So you do that like once a week,
once every other few days a week. There's a developer that stops.
There's dozens of those, hundreds of those.
The's so much growth.
I was joking, like it happens once in a while. It
happens weekly,
okay.
and there's a lot of big companies, not just St. Joe. A lot of private investors, really with a great vision for Bay County, and there's huge development on the horizon.
Do you see it countywide?
Absolutely.
So it's not just the beach. It's not just.
It's not.
Okay.
No, it's not. Now, most of our new residents are moving to the beach in Callaway.
Right.
And since January 1, we've had around 6,590 new residents move to Bay County. That doesn't count their children. These are people that specifically forfeited or gave up a driver's license for another state to get a Florida driver's license. And they came from, the largest to smallest in numbers: Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Texas, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Oregon, and California. That's where people are coming from.
Can you give me, and I know this is anecdotal, but you're saying it's all the time that you're hearing these stories, and I've heard similar kinds of things, but this one's pretty fun, pretty impressive. Tell me the Ohio story about.
Yeah, so there's a gentleman and his family moved here from Ohio, and in the office we was like, well, why are you moving here from Ohio? Well, his son, who was about high school age, was on a baseball team, and that the same 15 kids have been on since they were in T-ball. And during the pandemic, Ohio stopped sports for children, and so they started looking around the country for places for their kids to go play baseball. Because these parents, whether it happens or not, they want to support their kids in these endeavors because it could lead to college scholarships and who knows, maybe one of them will make it in the major leagues. But it's they're supporting their kids, and they came down to Niceville for a baseball tournament. And while they were in Niceville, the coach, all 15 parents, all the kids, they just decided they're going to move to the Panhandle so they can keep playing baseball. They liked it here. Cost of living was less. Most of them had jobs that allowed them to work remotely, so they're spread out from Bay County to Okaloosa County now, and playing baseball and loving the weather.
That's awesome. I think it's awesome. Tell me a little. I've met some really neat people that have just moved to Bay County. I've met some fine Christians. I've met some that could potentially become Christians. All of which is good. Many of them coming here to work. Many of them have young families. Quite a few of them have values very similar to ours. Mm-hmm. One of the things that you had mentioned to me when I asked you why are they coming, you've talked to several of those, mm-hmm. that a fair number that they can work remotely,
Mm-hmm.
and they're choosing to come here to live here and work from home because this is, it's Bay County, right?
That's right.
And so you're finding that to be a real thing?
Well, it is a real thing, and and one thing they all have in common besides working remote, at some point in time they had vacationed here with family, and they knew that how beautiful the area is and what it has to offer recreationally with all of our outdoor activities that we can do here, and they know that the cost of living compared to where they're coming to is very affordable.
Right.
So.
That is all excellent news from my perspective. Tell me again. You said how many adults that have
6,590 since January 1.
All right, and so
and that's through the end of last month. So
is there any number on the general demographic age wise on those folks?
Haven't done that research.
I was just curious.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fascinated with all the numbers that you have done, but not surprised because you are an accountant. As it relates to infrastructure, I've tried to ask this of many of our guests because whether it's a city manager talking about roads and streets
Mm-hmm.
or schools, if it's somebody related to schools, there's going to be more people coming through these through the offices as well as trying to do things online. I know you did tell me the Renewal Kiosks have a lot more capacity, so
Sure.
there's plenty of opportunity for people to use those.
Yeah.
But you've actually got plans for some more offices at some point?
Absolutely.
As needed?
Absolutely. So I've already struck a deal with Tyndall Air Force Base. They're going to build me an office on base in 2025. They've already secured funding for it, and that office will be able to serve. I think they're estimating about between 30 and 40,000 people will have access to the base, contractors, airmen and women, veterans. So we're going to be able to serve people there. As developments move up 231, we're going to need to be looking at an office in the Youngstown, Bayou George area. And our office at the beach is about half the size of what it needs to be. So I'm either going to have to open another office at the end of the beach or, work with the county to build a bigger office out on the beach than what we have now, because I believe the beach's population will probably triple in 5 years.
Wow.
At the way we're going.
So I had asked, do you see any change of pace in the growth? And that really is your answer.
Mm-hmm.
You think it's going to triple in the next 5?
I think it just keeps coming. I mean, why wouldn't people come here?
I totally agree with you. That is the case. I mean, this is a good news story, right? I mean,
right.
we obviously want to talk about what's great. I know people struggle with infrastructure relative to roads and those kind of things. But any growing community anywhere,
mm-hmm.
you don't build it before they come. I mean,
right.
And so if it's growing as fast as what we are, and we are booming, there's going to be some pains with that.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned a conversation that was had early on. I think it was a gentleman from down south that had been through a hurricane,
mm-hmm.
And they kind of gave you a pep talk relative to what to expect because
right.
we were
That's
looking
right.
at a devastated area. What did they say about what to
right
expect?
after the hurricane, they came in to help us. I believe it was Pepe Diaz. He's the chair of the county commission for Miami-Dade County. He came in and did search and rescue in Mexico Beach because he's qualified to do that. He came back, a few days later and came to the EOC, and he talked with me and several other elected officials. And he and several other people in the room, they all agreed, when you've gone through this kind of devastation, it's heartbreaking. It's hard to see your way out of it. But they reassured us they're there with us. They are going to walk beside us, get us through it. And they said we will not even recognize the place in 10 years. And we're 3 years out now. I think we can all see all of the improvements. I mean, there's so many new structures being built. There's so many new jobs. There's companies looking to relocate here. It's bad as it was. It was a catalyst for change that I believe we really needed to be able to move forward in Bay County.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I want to kind of get because we may close here, but before I do that, I want to tell you something about experience with one of your employees.
Okay.
At the Lynn Haven branch. I believe, and I don't remember all my transactions, but I believe at the Lynn Haven branch before the pandemic, I went in to have a tag renewal or do something
mm-hmm.
there, and I met a gentleman named Josh.
Mm-hmm.
Now Josh is deaf, and I noticed then that obviously I needed to type to be able to interact with
mm-hmm.
him some. I came in after and I thought it was impressive, honestly, that because it was obvious to me he was having to work extremely hard to be kind and courteous and get the same things accomplished that some around him, and everybody was nice. But then I also came back. I want you to tell me a story in a minute. But when I came back the next time, it was during the pandemic, and for someone who is deaf that reads lips, for me to have to wear a mask and him not to be able to read my lips, and then on top of that, I can't read his face, and I just really, in a world where there's people that have all kind of reasons why they don't work, I was impressed, one, that your office gave him that opportunity, but I was doubly impressed that here's a young man that's working hard, and I wanted to brag on him today. Mm-hmm. But you told me, can you tell me a little bit about Josh? I hope he hears this. I hope your team celebrates it.
So there's a story with Josh. 490 tax collector offices in Florida, 5,000 employees. Josh is the only deaf employee that is in a tax collector's office. So like I told you earlier, I don't really participate in the hiring process. I basically just do the approval. At the end of the process, we got a very rigorous 2-interview thing and job shadowing and all these things. Well, my staff came to me and told me, we've selected a young man for his first interview and he's deaf. We need to hire an interpreter. And so I'm thinking, well, this is crazy. I mean, this is a customer-facing position. I don't know how it works. I trust my team. I said, absolutely hire the interpreter. They were able to find one that came free of charge. Then I hear he's been recommended for a second interview. And I think to myself, this is intriguing because I know the impression you have to make on my team that they want to invite you into our culture, right? And I was like, okay, we'll bring the interpreter back. We'll do this. And sure enough, they came back after the second interview and they said, we recommend to hire Josh. And I said, well, I need to understand some things. Like, how does he do a road test and give instructions? Like, how does he serve customers that are coming up and you have to ask lots of technical legal questions to even determine what they actually need? And so I had a lot of questions about how this was going to work. The interesting thing with ADA is that I can't ask what equipment he needs until I extend a job offer. So all I have to do is trust that if he says he can do the job, and I'm willing to hire him, I make him the offer, he accepts the offer, then I can ask him what equipment he needs. I don't know. I'm on Google trying to figure this out because my team loves this guy. And I haven't met him yet. I didn't understand it. And so I was really challenged. And a girl in my office, Kara, who loves the Lord, great family. At the time, she was my director of administration, which kind of encompasses HR and several things. I was talking with her and she says, we need an answer on our new hire recommendations. And I said, Kara, I can't figure out in my mind how we can do this. And she said, what's your concerns? I said, my concerns is he spent the last 5 years working at Walgreens. He's moved up the ladder. He's got a great job there, great benefits. I'm scared for him to take a risk and come join our team. And what if it don't work out? And she says to me, she says, when's the last time you cared about anybody else that we're hiring leaving their job? I said, well, that's keeping it real. Thank you for that. I said, I'm just worried for him. I love him. I think he's got a great thing, and I'm worried. And she says, well, let me ask you a couple more questions. And I said, okay. She says, do you believe God led you to this position? And I said, yes. She says, do you believe God led you here to play it safe or to make a difference in people's lives? And I said, to make a difference in people's lives. No, it's clearly a ministry. And she said, if we hire Josh, whose lives do you think changed the most? I said, ours. And she said, I think you have your answer, don't you? And she got up and walked out of the room. And I signed the offer letter. That's awesome. That's how Josh joined the team, and he is phenomenal.
Is it okay for me to, I didn't ask you if I could. Can I ask you his last name?
Bleisner.
Josh Bleisner.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Bleisner's never really met me. He doesn't know I'm a pastor or anything. I've just observed and just been astonished, honestly. Mm-hmm. And I think I've got some stories I'd love to tell too, but I've met a couple of people in recent weeks that truly have a desire to work. They have a desire to excel and to do well for their family. Mm-hmm. And I think what you said about loving people, making a difference in people's lives, if we as a community, and it goes back to what Dr. Clonch said,
Mm-hmm.
Brother Mike, if we want our world to be better,
starts at home.
I can't go to Washington and fix it. There are people that may have that, but me, I can't. I can start it at home.
That's right.
I can start it in my workplace by changing a culture, loving my people, figuring out how I can empower them and encourage them. And I'm gonna tell you, this is a compliment back to you. You have created a culture people want to work for. You have people coming and wanting to work for you. They should want to come and work for you because they believe that their life's going to be better and they can be a part of something bigger than themselves because of it. That matters. It makes me proud of the tax office in Bay County. It's great news.
And if you can do it in government, you can do it anywhere.
Yeah. It is a process that can be replicated, but it's also a process that reflects the goodness of what we know of this community.
That's right.
And so the challenge, I don't normally leave a challenge, but I thank you for being our guest today.
Well, thank you for
Joe.
having me.
But I think the challenge I want to leave our people is make the world a better place. Make Bay County a better place. Whether you're new here or you've been here, there's reason to be hopeful about the days ahead. The best is truly yet to come. Listen, we're thankful that you've tuned in with us today for this episode of Good News Bay, where we seek to make Bay County brighter one conversation at a time. We'll probably have some links and some good stuff in the comments so they can go find all these wonderful, incredible resources. So thank you so much, and we pray you guys have a great day. Thank you for listening to our podcast today. If you were encouraged by the good news, we would ask you to subscribe through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, as well as YouTube. If you will subscribe, all new content will come your way. You'll get notified of it, and it'll help us to brighten Bay County. Thanks, guys.